Guten Tag, Observer, und willkommen in zu mein Welt. In this episode, we are talking about romance. Um, if you haven't watched the previous episode, in the previous episode, I gave some insights into what it is like to first have an experience talking to Germans, receiving German criticism. And I will say, German criticism, because Americans, we do not give criticism like the Germans do. Um, anyway, well, as my first experiences with criticism, or that's probably a gross generalization, but it is what it is. That's what happened to me. That's my experience. It was an eye-opening experience. I didn't have any hard feelings leaving it. It was just, it is what it is. But anyway, so now I want to talk about my experiences flirting with the Frauen. Oh man. Oh man. Oh, it just makes me shudder thinking about it. Um, First, let me give my preconception before I give my real conception. Okay, so in America, um, like I said in previous videos, the typical acceptance, the typical expectation is that men hunt for women. Um, this is just a generalization. There's multiple modes of dating. My particular mode, my particular upbringing is a little bit more old school. What I prefer happen is that, okay, we meet through mutual friends, and well, I ask a mutual friend to introduce me to one of their mutual friends, and see if there is somebody they know that would be interested in me and such like that. And that's kind of my ideal situation, or just meeting somebody in college, having a good time with them, and later determining that, hey, maybe we should get married, something like that. However, that is not what my generation really expects, what they really put a value on. And I'm going to give um, a specific example. Um, I roomed with a female friend of mine before, and this isn't unheard of, but this is pretty rare in America. It was pretty rare that I had a female roommate, and from this experience, I was single at the time. She was single, but there was um, it was it was understood that we were not going to date. Like, it was understood I'm not going to make advances towards her. She's not going to make advances towards me, though I probably would have been okay with it. It was just a mutual agreement. We're just roommates. Okay? And but I was actually on the prowl. And so, like, that's a common American saying. I'm on the prowl means that I'm lonely and I want to be with someone. Okay? So I asked her, do you have any friends that you'd be able to introduce me to? And she looked straight at me and was like, no, you need to learn how to play the game yourself. And like, she was like, you need to learn how to approach a woman with confidence. You need to learn how to trick her into dating you and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, what? I'm not saying like you need to, like, I'm not saying that what she meant was that I need to trick a woman into dating me. She legitimately said that. Okay, that I legitimately need to learn how to play the game and how to trick a woman into being with me. And to me, that was just disgusting. Just I believe that that is a um, deceitful way of doing things. It's not honest. It's I'm looking for something like a serious relationship type ordeal, whereas that is more like hunting to for a one night stand. Okay, but anyway, that gives you a little bit of information of where I'm coming from. Like, even though I'm a little bit removed from that, like, still I'm used to a little subtlety in, like, kind of misguiding the conversation and then bringing it back to, hey, let's go out, let's go do this together, or something like that, starting on a false pretense almost. And I would hate to say that I do that. I didn't know that I do that. but it's definitely not the same as like an average American would do. And then on the flip side, you have guys that are um, incredibly forward about it. It was like, hey, lady, want to come home with me? Type situation. Or, like, not even like that. It's just like, obviously, hey, let's go do something. Type, like, it's very overt, it's very out in the open type situation. And from my preconception, I've watched Eurotrip. There is, I mean, that almost says it all right there. But there's a general misconception in America that Europeans are more open with their bodies, are more accepting of casual interactions, casual sexual interactions, and such like that. And this is mainly stemmed from a misconception derived from the fact that nudity is more acceptable in films in Europe. And whereas in America, oh, it's taboo to have, like, you have to rate that R, you have to, like, keep that away from children. Nudity, keep that away from children. And so one an American would be led to expect that, well, nudity's okay in Europe, so maybe, I guess, they're more sexualized creatures than an American would be, when in fact it's kind of the opposite. Because we don't talk about um, we don't talk about, well, we don't watch nudity and stuff like that. We don't let our kids watch it and stuff like that, but and we don't really talk about it. But from my experience, American women are a lot easier than some of the European women I've met. But anyway, all that aside, um, that was a that was a generalization. If you're an American woman, I'm sorry, but that's a general experience that I've had. Um, but anyway, like I said, I'm more of a serious relationship type person. Um, However, I still had this pre-notion that Germans are, well, Europeans are more open about sexuality. Therefore, Germans, by retrospect, would also be open about sexuality and such like that. And so my first experiences flirting with a German woman were pretty bad. Oh man, it was bad. Like, oh, it was bad. Like the first one, I was just like, I'm going to talk about three specific instances. Okay, the first one, I just wrote this woman like a poem, like confessing my love to her, even though I wasn't really confessing my love to her. It was just Valentine's Day and I was having fun. And I was just like, hey, here's a poem for you. And oh my God, I mean, sorry, she was just offended. Like, she ended up blocking me just right off the bat. And we were having a decent conversation right before that. But after that, she just blocked me. And then a second woman I talked to, I was like, um, she just plain out ignored me. I was like, you're very beautiful. You're very beautiful, and I think that your beauty would help me keep focus on learning German and stuff like that. And I didn't know that that was way over the top at the time. Um, and then I started to, like, she kind of politely ignored me. Um, like, we talked a little bit, but she was really just politely ignoring me. And then the third German that I tried to flirt with, I wasn't really even flirting with her. Um, but I gave up the whole um, very, like, aggressive type nature. But anyway, but it still became a problem because um, I was kind of still flirting with her, but not. Where I was like telling her all the kind of women that I would be interested in. We had been talking for several days, like a week or so at this time. And I was telling her about, like, the type of women I'm into, stuff like that, what I'm expecting, and stuff like that. And I was kind of um, making a reference back to her a little bit, and because she was attractive, but I wasn't like specifically trying to date her. But I was like flirting with her. Like in America, that would be kind of flirting, like a subtle flirt. Whereas if I was trying to date her, the typical American way was like totally go off on a completely different tangent and then snap back and like completely wow her, or confuse her, or whatever to try to win her over or whatnot. But I was just like subtly, I was being a little bit more subtle with it than I wasn't being as dishonest as a normal American probably would be. And even though I wasn't being as dishonest, like whenever it kind of merged back into like, okay, well, that she realizing that that I was flirting with her, oh my goodness, that was that was so horrible. She opened up on me like she was like, you are so nasty, you're such a well, she was kind of telling me I was nasty to begin with because I didn't realize that like I have a little bit of sexual humor, and that's perfectly okay in America. Like it's probably kind of okay in Germany if you have really close friends, but like I that's perfectly okay to say. What I was saying was perfectly okay to say normal. Like I was making jokes like, I'd like to have a German teach me the female body parts and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, you're so nasty and stuff like that. And whenever she realized that I was kind of flirting with her while saying that at the same time, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, she like it was a surreal experience for me because she was speaking German. I my German is I can understand like written German kind of okay, but even then like there was no language barrier. Like what she was saying was so sharp and piercing that it almost reduced me to tears. I mean, it was like I have never been chewed out like that in my life. It was phenomenal. And what it was is that she was upset with me for being dishonest with her. Like for like it was like an insult that I was being so disingenuous. Like I don't know. It was like kind of like a betrayal type thing. When she realized that I was flirting with her, oh my goodness, like it was just horrible. I mean, she was of course saying stuff like, "Well, you shouldn't be talking like this over the internet. You shouldn't be trying to date someone over the internet." Blah 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 blah. But like some of the things she said, I can't even remember them now. Like my brain just has like completely forgotten about the event, like to save itself from the pain and hurt. But I mean, she wasn't really being painful. Like it felt really painful. Like it was sharp and piercing, like I said, but it wasn't. She wasn't really being actually mean to me. She was being mean, but she wasn't being mean to me. But anyway, and like we still talk. Like she like she really like dug under my skin, and she was like really being hurtful in a way, but it wasn't. It might have been a little bit of like I wasn't used to that. Well, obviously that was the first time anyone has ever chewed me out like that. But anyway, like after that, like I apologized to her. Like I was like I am so sorry. Like I didn't know. Like obviously I've said something wrong. I didn't know um, what exactly I was saying. I didn't know that it would be taken this way. And I just gave her a sincere apology. Like it was a little bit more elaborate than what I'm saying. Usually I talk in paragraphs. And of course I apologized completely in German, like in a paragraph. And I that may have given her like given me some credit at least, that I was writing like an apology in a careful apology in German, and she accepted my apology, and I was just like, what? Oh man, the autofocus was the autofocus on? It should be off. I told it to be off, but anyway, um, that was just mind-boggling, because here, if pretty much if you strike out with a woman, where I'm from, if you strike out with a woman, if you try anything else, like that's kind of like borderline sexual harassment. Like if she says, "Oh, you're a horrible guy," type thing, you can apologize, but they typically will not accept your apology, because in America we always apologize. Like, and it's almost to a point where, like, when we apologize, the other person feels like we're not really apologizing. We are just doing it because that's what we're taught to do. So for a woman to actually accept my apology like that and then go on talking to me like the event never happened, that was like I had just found like the oasis in the middle of the desert. I was like, "Oh my gosh. This is awesome." I mean, it really was. Like, it was just mind-boggling that, oh my gosh. This was I have been forgiven. Like, I've never felt forgiven like that before. And it was just a surreal experience. And like after that I googled. I was like, what did I do wrong? So I'm sitting there like, what did I do wrong with all three of these women? So I'm sitting there googling like where everything went wrong. And I'm sitting there googling it and everything. And then Google comes up with the phrase, the German ice princess. And so I start reading these blogs about the German ice princess, and all these guys like talking about, oh, I can never like they're just all talking about how they strike out against German women. And like this is like people from like Italy, like not just America, just like Italy, France, everything, just guys being like the German ice princess. And like I started reading that, and like what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And what it turned out was that, well, one, um, for the most part, I was being completely aggressive. Like I was being more aggressive than I thought I was, because like I was under the impression that, hey, Germans are honest, so I could probably just speak my mind and that'll be okay. No, if you come on to a woman and be like, hey, I like, well, not, yeah, I guess, hey, I like you, I want to spend some time with you, blah 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 blah. That's a little too aggressive, and you might come off as desperate. And I didn't know that. And then on the opposite effect, if you make it too subtle, if you make it too subtle, like if you indirect the conversation and then come back to it, like I did with the woman who completely blasted me, not blasted me, no, not blasted me, but like criticized me, that you'll come off as disingenuous and they'd feel betrayed. Um, and that was kind of weird. And then I started learning more about it, and that like the Germans are more honest. They'll be like, "Oh, I like you," blah blah blah. Like after a while, they'll be like, "Hey, I like you. Can I get your number?" Stuff like that. Stuff that seems like it should be natural. But anyway, um, like they are honest, but to Americans, it seemed like something we wouldn't acknowledge, because if, well, there was a problem where like of people going to Germany and saying they've never been flirted on and stuff like that, and people like saying, well, yeah, you were, and such like that. And the general consensus is that Americans are so, like, I mean, even me as an American, even I having some like, well, obviously I've been treated by Americans, so this isn't even me having one step closer to being Germanized. This is my interaction with Americans, where we can say, "Oh, we like you," blah blah blah, and it not really mean anything. We're just flavoring our words and stuff like that. Whereas in Germany, from like my experiences, when I'm seeing from other people, that if if a German says something, they mean what they say, and that is kind of interesting. And that was just, it was kind of a beautiful experience. I mean, on one hand, that woman almost made me cry. Like, I was seriously hurt. And, like, I ended up coming off as, like, an insecure little boy because I was greatly offended by it. Like, I was greatly hurt by it, which I don't know if like, a German guy would just brush it off or not, because they'd probably be used to, like, harshness that an American wouldn't be. But, like, she was like, you need to have a stronger heart type stuff. And I was like, wow, okay, so obviously I struck out. She thinks I'm a little bit weaker. Eventually, once I grew my skin, like, became accustomed to it, like, it wasn't much of an issue, and we have, like, these awesome conversations now, and everything's just perfectly fine. And it was like, but anyway, but that was a potentially horrifying experience. And if, like, I didn't have the gumption to, like, sincerely apologize, or if I didn't have, like, the patience to be like, hey, I am sorry, I didn't mean to do this, I would still like to talk to you. Like, if I was just a guy who just, like, okay, I struck out, this woman, she's just a German ice princess, time to go on to another chick, I wouldn't have learned that. I wouldn't have learned anything. And so, I mean, to me, like I was saying in the last episode, in regards to general German harshness, which isn't really, it is a thing. It is a thing to American, but they don't understand that it's not y'all being actually harsh. That it's actually just y'all speaking your minds. Um, but I mean, to American, it is considered German harshness. But I mean, if it wasn't, I think an average American probably would have just walked away at that point and been like, "Oh man, that's horrible." So I think that is another cultural barrier, like I mentioned in the last episode, where not many people go over that barrier like I have. Like, not many people go over the barrier and see the beautiful culture for what it is, because they get hung up and that it's too much of a struggle. And I think that if they were more aware of it, then it would be okay. It's just, it's really not something we're used to. Just like when I talked about the language, like, it's a huge barrier because all we hear about German is how aggressive, like, Bavarian and Arnold Schwarzenegger's accent sounds like, and just everything has horrible connotations. Like, we're not experienced with it, but if we were, it's amazing. At least for me, it's amazing. And in the next episode, I'm going to talk about just how amazing it is for me. But that was my main experience with romance. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about kind of feminism, and how gender equality is. Well, my perception of German gender equality and what that has as an effect on me. Anyway, that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next one. And like always, leave comments in the sections below. Tell me how a woman sent you crying, or how German men typically respond to women approaching them or guys approaching them. I don't really care. But just, I want y'all's opinion. And I hope y'all enjoy this video, and I'll see you next time. Bis bald.